So for today's practice, we'll be working on the low back. I called it Love Your Low Back, so we'll slow down a little bit and spend some time in the low back area. I have today the foam roller, my alpha ball, my standard size therapy balls, as well as my Coregeous ball. If you don't have an alpha ball, you can use a standard size ball on top of a block or a book as well. And the foam roller and Coregeous ball are often interchangeable. So, to arrive, let's lie flat on our backs. Bring your props off to the side so they're easily accessible, and just arrive. Notice what it feels like to lie flat on the floor. Lean into the support of the ground beneath you. Exhaling and letting your body be heavy, letting go of any muscular effort, and observing, where am I still holding? Allow your tailbone, sacrum, and pelvis to be heavy. Feeling the weight of the pelvic bowl drop towards the floor. Notice if you're balanced from left to right. Notice if one side is higher than the other. Hiked up towards the ear. And then notice the space in your low back. Does it feel even from left to right? No need to change or try to adjust. Just sense where you're beginning and starting right where you are. Notice how it feels right now in this moment. See if the ribs can comfortably drop down into the earth. Sensing your breath if you're holding the breath in, or if the breath is shallow. Observe the quality of your breathing. Observing just how bringing your awareness to it, it starts to shift a little. And the feeling state of the body is already shifting from when you first arrived. And then bend both knees. Placing your feet on the floor. And begin to explore the transverse plane, a rotational plane of movement in the low back. Pressing into the left foot as you rock towards the right. Coming back towards center, pressing into the left foot. Pressing through the left and then pressing through the right so that you rock from one edge of the sacrum to the other, creating a little massage of the back of the pelvis. Feel how one foot propels the motion, then the other foot propels the motion. And then start to make that movement a little bigger so that the hip lifts, the rib cage starts to lift. Feeling that spiraling movement up the spine, like a gentle rocking, freeing the spine in this rotational plane. And we'll spend more time here. So don't worry about getting a deep stretch or trying to hold it. Just get this smooth rocking motion to start to wake up the awareness of the body as you move through this plane. Sensing if one direction is easier than the other. Finding the fullness of that movement right now, and then letting it slow down and return to stillness. And then now, coming into maybe a more familiar motion, just doing a little pelvic tilt, tip the tailbone down towards the heels, and then tuck the tailbone up towards the knees. So you're rocking over the sacrum like you're rocking in a rocking chair. To the front edge by the tailbone, and then the back edge by the low back. Seeing if you're rocking evenly left and right, as well as if you're able to go through the full motion. Noticing if there's anywhere in that range that's a little sticky. And then pausing, feeling the sacrum become heavy on the floor. Straighten your arms and legs out again. And reach your arms up overhead. And now stretch through the left heel and the left fingertips, creating length in the left side waist. And then reach out of the right heel and the right fingertips, creating length in the right side waist. Connect your breath to the movement, inhaling as you reach one way. Exhaling back to center, and then inhaling the other side. Creating this milking action as you create just a little bit more length in the spine. Noticing if it's easier to breathe into one side than the other. And then pausing in stillness, letting the arms come down and just lying here again. Beginning again after exploring all those planes of motion, the front and back, the side to side and rotational plane. Arriving in the body, this three-dimensional, complex body of ours. Sensing again the pelvis, low back, and rib cage, allowing them all to rest into the earth. Feeling supported in order to let the body heal, change, and transform. And now bend the knees and find your standard size therapy balls, and also keep your alpha ball nearby as well. We'll come back towards that pelvic tilting action, bringing the therapy balls under the tailbone, right at the broad part of the sacrum. So in the dimples of the sacrum, in the back of the pelvis, place your therapy balls in the tote right there. And now we'll get to mobilize along the edges of the S sacrum and the SI joints as we go through this pelvic tilting, letting the hips drop off and then letting the hips curl up. feeling that motion become a little bit bigger now. If there's any sense of instability in the legs, you can take your block or your Coregeous ball between your knees for a little extra stability to keep the legs in neutral. Allow the pelvis to drive the motion. Maybe you pause and just go through part of the motion if you feel a part of that SI joint or of that sacrum that's particularly sensational. Letting your body weight dropping into the balls be the driver for release. Connecting one breath through with motion. Maybe inhaling as you arch and then exhaling as you round. Driving the flexion and extension of the spine from the tailbone. And then letting that ball slide up off the tailbone into the low back, seeing what happens as these therapy balls press right into where the low back and sacrum meet. So now the balls are filling that natural arch of the low back, and you're just lying over them. And feel just a little pressure. There might feel like a lot of pressure, or just a little pressure, or even nothing at all, as the balls meet that low back curve. And then with the therapy balls in the low back, begin to do that pelvic tilting action again. Maybe you slow it down. Maybe it becomes a little smaller as you try to feel the balls right in that space between where the lumbar spine and the sacrum meet. Creating separation of motion and space in the lumbosacral junction, which is an important transitional point in our body. Creating separation in that lumbosacral area is really important for normal mechanics. And then now remove the ball from between your knees if it's there, because we're going to come back into rotation. And so now notice shifting into one foot and then shifting into the other, and see if you can bump up against that last lumbar vertebrae, feeling the transverse or side processes of the vertebrae as now the hips steer from side to side. So no longer is the pelvis going forward and back. It's like a steering wheel. The left knee steers forward as you rotate to the right, and the right knee steers forward as you rotate to the left. And it's really small. See if you can sense the motion just in that one joint. Just a little steering, seeing if you can kind of almost like you're wiggling a jaw, wiggling a jaw free. And then pausing. Take the balls up one segment more. Now, if you put your hands on the pelvis, like you're placing your hands on the top of your hips, you're right in line with the top of your hips, the L4 vertebrae. And now we'll explore the movement there. And here there might be even a little bit more curve, so even a little less pressure of the therapy balls. If you feel like you need more, you could place them up on something, but I wouldn't encourage too much more height. And then come back to that pelvic tilt. See what it's like to move right over this segment. See if you can visualize this segment of the lumbar spine. And then pause, and now see what it's like to rotate. So with your knees, steering the hips, so the hips rotate like a steering wheel to the right, and then steer to the left. Playing kind of a ping pong from one ball to the other ball. Getting this really subtle, isolated rotation. Notice if there's this desire to scrunch one side of the back, to like lift it up, versus just stay purely on that rotational plane. And then when you're ready, move the therapy balls up again in the low back. So moving up one more segment. Explore in the upper lumbar area with a pelvic tilting. Making the movements really small so that you can feel each vertebrae move. Visualize the movement of one segment on top of the other. And then steer side to side, press into the left foot to get that little rotation to the right, press through the right foot to get that little rotation to the left. Notice if you try to hike your hip rather than rotate through the pelvis. And then move up one more time. You're right at the top of the lumbar spine now. So if you're like, where am I? Find the bottom rib and then move just below the bottom rib. So now you're in that thoracolumbar junction. So we started at our lumbosacral junction. And now we're at the thoracic lumbar junction. Noticing if you can isolate just that motion in that one transitional point with the arch and the round, feeling the balls give you a tactile cue. And then what happens if you change that to the rotational plane? Moving slowly, moving intentionally. Push through the left to twist right. Pause in the center. Push through the right to rotate left. Pause in the center. Sensing the transverse or the side processes of that backbone, of that vertebrae pressing into the therapy ball. Getting really specific, really intimate with each of those low back movements. And then pause into stillness. Remove the therapy balls. And then let your low back drop to the floor. Maybe even lengthening the legs out again, feeling what the low back feels like. as you lie flat on your back. And then take your foam roller, and I want you to bring your foam roller into your back now. So lying on your back with your knees bent, instead of taking the foam roller, as I often do, under the sacrum and pelvis, I want to take it under the low back. So it's filling the arch of the back now, so that the back is supported in that arch and the pelvis drops down. And the legs can stay bent. Bring the arms out to the floor so the upper body stays relaxed and at ease. If it feels right, maybe you straighten one leg or both legs. Pausing here, feeling that low back arch being lifted up. And now what I want to do is I want to start to bring the awareness to the front of the spine. So it's really the front of the spine that we want to weight bear and that we want to get connected with, because it's the front of the spine between the visceral organs and the spine that really is meant to bear the weight, and it's really meant to protect us and support us. Oftentimes we think about the back and we use the back body to stabilize us, but the more we can become in tune and in touch with the front edge of the spine, the more support we'll have. So knees can be bent or straight, whichever is more supportive for you. And if this foam is too much, maybe just a rolled up towel is a nice alternative. Wherever you are, I want you to breathe in. And as you breathe in, I want you to feel the breath travel down the front of the spine between all of the organs and the front of the spinal cord, all the way from the rib cage right to the tailbone. And then as you breathe out, feel the breath move right back up that front of the spine. Let's take a few breaths here as we sink in, feeling the inhale travel down the front of the spine, terminating in the front of the sacrum. Breathe right into the back wall of the pelvis, and then out. Noticing if there are any spots that get stuck as the breath travels down. Pausing in those places. And with your breath, restoring awareness to the front wall of the spine. Taking 3 more breaths here. And then letting the breath return to normal. Bend your knees. And in this position, I'll give you an option. You can stay here with the foam roller, or you can come back towards your alpha ball, your mid-sized ball, like the size of a fist, and place it in one side of the low back. I'm going to stay with the foam for now because it's already here. But if my foam roller is a little softer, so if yours is too big or isn't fitting between the pelvis and the rib cage, maybe come to a smaller prop. And I'm just going to rotate to the left and then back to center. And what I want to do here is I rotate to the left. I want to feel the foam make its way, kind of nestle its way between the pelvis and the rib cage, creating some separation of movement between the pelvis and the rib cage. See if you can let the back stay heavy, and we're just going left and then back to center, left and then back to center. See if you can let go of any efforting in the spine. Allowing the left knee to drop towards the floor as you rotate. Pausing and breathing and softening in as you meet sensation. Seeing if you can allow the breath to dissolve the sensation between the prop and the body. Taking about 3 more rounds, and then we'll pause in the rotation. And at any time, if the foam's feeling too big, you can replace it with the alpha ball or even a towel roll. A nice alternative to the foam roller is just rolling up a yoga mat. It's a little softer and a little smaller as well. And already as I return to center, I can really feel the difference between the left and right side. So now hold that left rotation through the lower body, allowing the rib cage to still point upward with your back and shoulders pressed into the floor. Can you keep the breath in the front of the body, along the front wall of the spine, between the organs and the body of the spinal bones or the vertebrae? Really breathing into that left kidney area, right where the foam and the body meet. And then return to center, reset. And then let's continue now going towards the right. Feeling how on this first round to the right, you notice, oh, I might not make it all the way to the floor, or I might feel a little resistance. So pause at that first edge of resistance and use the repetition and the breath to help you progress that edge. No need to rush to the end point. Let the repetitions slowly allow you to progress the available movement, meeting yourself right where you are, noticing how with each breath there's a little bit more movement accessible. Letting go of the efforting and sensing right where the foam and the body meet, and noticing how this side may feel really different than the other side, and just allowing it to be like that. Breathing deeply, ball and body, or in this case for me, foam and body. Feeling the juxtaposition of the two. Feeling the expansion and movement from the breath right where the two meet. And then maybe on the next rock, pausing for about 5 breaths in that rotation. Compressing now into the right kidney area. The right quadratus lumborum. Feeling that separation of rib cage and pelvis as the rib cage stays planted on the earth and the pelvis rotates towards the right. For 2 more rounds of breath. And then coming back to center, engage the belly to scoop the tailbone and lift the pelvis. Allow yourself to return towards the floor, keeping the knees bent for a moment to allow the back to settle. Feeling the echo or the resonance of that flow. There might be an initial sensation of intense feeling, maybe a little sharpness, maybe a vibration, maybe a throbbing or a warmth. Stay with that sensation in the body, allowing it to subside. Returning to stillness, maybe even returning to that initial starting point with the legs straight and feeling the difference. And then making your way onto your side. I'm going to give you a couple options here to continue with that separation of pelvis and rib cage, moving our way into the side of the spine. You can take your Coregeous ball if you have it, which I highly recommend. Or you can take the Alpha ball, which is a little smaller but a bit more intense, but you might really feel it bump up right against the side of the spine, the transverse processes. Or you can take the foam roller. So just choose whatever tool you would like to use. Because we've already warmed up, I'm gonna go right into the Alpha ball, but the Coregeous ball is great too. The harder ball isn't necessarily better. If you find yourself fighting against the sensation of the ball at any time, find a softer tool and then prop the head up so that your head can remain in neutral. So now we're lying on our side just like we're sitting in a chair. So my knees are bent to 90 degrees and my therapy ball is right in the side of my waist, just above the rim of the pelvis. So sitting in that space between the pelvis and the rib cage, I'm just going to allow the ball to sink right into the side of my spine. Let your eyes close, let your body soften, sink into this nice supported fetal position. Breathe right into where the ball and the body meet, creating a broad breath now, a lateral breath. Creating separation and space between the rib cage and the pelvis. Welcoming the stillness and the softness first, and then maybe creating a little additional rocking motion as you start to tip the pelvis, allowing the Alpha ball, Coregeous ball, or foam, whichever you chose, to move in a little bit deeper. really letting time and breath allow you to soften, allow you to melt, making space for the therapy ball as it moves right into the side body. And now take your top knee in front so it comes towards the floor, and then straighten your bottom leg out and notice what happens here. Maybe you move in a little bit deeper. Coming back to the breath right where ball and body meet. And now I want to add a little activation along the midline of the body. So I'm just going to have you lift the inside of the left leg so that you're adducting the hip. And you might feel a little additional pull right where the prop and the body meet. Just getting a little lengthening, a little tugging, playing with that edge, with that side to side motion. Do about 3 more lifts. And then sink back in. And you might come into that position a little bit more easily now. And then now let's take your top arm right on top of the bottom and slide the top arm now across the chest and then out behind you, allowing yourself to come into a twist. I told you we'd come back to a twist. Now we'll pause here and hold. And if the prop feels good underneath there, hold it there. If you'd like to take the prop out and just be in that twist, really feeling the separation of the rib cage and pelvis now, you can do that. So props are completely optional. Wherever you are, completely let go of efforting now. Let the body sink entirely. And if you get distracted, if you start to fidget, the mind wanders, come back to the breath. Right in that place in the left side waist. Taking 3 more breaths. And then untwisting, removing all of your props, coming back onto your back and pausing, sensing the difference now between the left and right sides. And as you're ready, roll to the right side. Take the prop under the right side of your body. Let your head be supported on a block, a foam, or a pillow. Bend the knees up like you're sitting in a chair, so at 90 degrees. First, just melting. Noticing, feeling the sensation of where the ball and body meet. Letting go and allowing the body to release, not by efforting, but by welcoming. And if it feels right, you can do a little pelvic tilt here. Pausing at different spots that may feel sensational. And then allow the bottom leg to straighten and the top knee to come to the floor. Reach through the inside of the right foot. And then when you're ready, begin to lift the right foot off the floor. Feeling how as you lift the right foot, you feel a pulling in that plane between ball and body. Without efforting, feeling it like a flossing motion. Do 2 more rounds. And then let your left hand come on top of the right and peel yourself open into a twist. If you'd like to remove the props in order to just sink into the twist, that is completely fine. Wherever you are, enjoy being there. As you let the body start to unwind into this left twist, feeling the opening through the side waist, separating the rib cage from the pelvis, allowing that ringing action through the low back. Pausing here for about 5 deep rounds of breath. With each exhale, feeling the ringing from the navel, pelvis one way, rib cage the other. And then rolling back to your side. Remove all of your props and lie flat onto your back. Now letting the entire body sink. Letting go completely. Letting the pelvis be heavy. The low back be heavy and relaxed. The rib cage. The entire spine supported, at rest and at ease. And then feel your breath flow down the front of the spine again. Connecting to the front of the spine, the weight-bearing portion of the spine that gives you support, gives you stability. Feeling your breath move all the way down into the bowl of the pelvis. And then exhaling all the way. Rest in this spaciousness as long as you'd like. And without rushing, as you're ready, bending your knees and turning to your side. Push yourself up to seated. Pausing and feeling the internal strength and length around the low back. Holding you up, giving you stability and free and mobile so that you can move back into your daily life. Thank you so much for joining me. Namaste.